sealed that is being used as a replacement for animal therapy in nursing homes, which is really kind of awesome.
So she builds planets on Earth, you guys.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our very special event, Walk in My Shoes, The Experience. I'm James Wetzel. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am the producer of adult programs at the Museum of Science, Boston. I'm coming to you live from our Suit Cabot studio, and I am so excited to kick off this very important evening. I'm going to be joined by members of Playground of Empathy and members of the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab at Northeastern University, and they are going to take us on a journey through an incredible experience that they have developed called Walk in My Shoes. Now, this is normally an experience that you do in person. I had the pleasure of doing so last year at Hub Week here in Boston, and I was immediately blown away by the value and the power of this project. And ever since then, our team here at the museum have been working with Playground of Empathy to put together an event that would have found us all together here tonight at the museum, going through the installation and having this conversation in person. Obviously, unfortunately, that is not possible right now. It will happen in the future, I promise you. But I am incredibly thankful to our friends at Playground of Empathy for pivoting with us and creating a virtual version of this experience that we can share with all of you tonight at a time that I think it is most needed. And this evening is a part of our current virtual season of adult programming. We have a great lineup of free digital events every week through the end of the year. So I encourage you to go to our website at mos.org/adults and check out that full lineup. You can sign up for your spot in all of those events, and make sure you sign up for our email list so that you can stay up to date on everything happening here at the Museum of Science for adults, just like tonight. A little bit later on in the evening, we will have the chance to ask our special guest speakers all of your questions. So as those come to mind tonight, you can submit those at any point starting right now by going to slido.com and entering the code in my shoes, all one word. So once again, that's Slido, SLIDO.com, with the code in my shoes, all one word. I need to thank our friends at the Lowell Institute for their continued support of the adult programming at the museum. Without them, we would not be here tonight, this event would not be happening, and it would not be free. So please join me in giving a huge virtual round of applause and thanks to the Lowell Institute. And finally, at the end of the event tonight, I ask all of you to go to donate.mos.org/MOS at home and consider making a gift to allow us to keep bringing free virtual STEM experiences just like tonight into all of your homes. Once again, that's donate.mos.org/MOS at home. But now it is my pleasure to bring to the stream two of our guests tonight, our first two guests. They are founders of Playground of Empathy, members of the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab at Northeastern University, and two of the forces behind Walk in My Shoes. Please join me in welcoming Micah J. Kessel and Kelly Van Dilla. Hello, you two.
Hello.
Hi, James.
It's so great to see you both, kind of face to face. First off, thank you both so much for being here tonight. I know how hard you have worked to pivot and create and turn this into a virtual experience for us to share with our audiences. I know they're going to appreciate it as much as I do, so thank you. I think the perfect place to start tonight, you're going to be with me all night. I'm excited. It's a party. The perfect way is for you to introduce yourselves. So if you can just tell a little bit about yourselves, your roles at Playground of Empathy and in this project, that would be great. So Kelly, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, James, and I'm so glad that this has come together. It's been over a year in the making. So I'm Kelly Van Dilla. My pronouns are they and she, and I am a founder at Playground of Empathy, and I'm also the head of multimedial design at the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab at Northeastern University. And I'm also one of the creators of the Walk in My Shoes experience.
Great. And Micah?
Thanks, James. It's so exciting to be here. Everything that's come into this, just so grateful, and want to start with that. We're here because everyone in the audience is here. So thank you also to everyone listening. My name's Micah Kessel. My pronouns are he and him. And I'm a commitment to the movement of emotional awareness happening around the world right now through networks, collaborations, and infrastructures. And I fulfill that commitment together with Kelly as founders of Playground of Empathy, and also as head of experience and emotion-centered design at the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab.
Great. And so we have a lot to go through, so I want to jump in, but for those people who have not had the pleasure, like I have, of experiencing Walk in My Shoes physically, can you just give a short introduction of what is Walk in My Shoes?
Kelly, do you want to? Should I?
I was going to ask if you wanted to. I can take it away if you'd like me to.
Okay, we can see what happens. Go for it.
All right, let's see what happens. So the Walk in My Shoes experience is an opportunity to really discover yourself, to have a conversation with yourself and those inner dialogues that happen in everyday moments of your life. And so it's really about creating a safe, as much as possible, a safe space, a space of non-assumption, a space for you to really explore and look at yourself. And then from that foundation to then step into the shoes of another person and see what it might be like to be someone who identifies in a different way, who is a different gender identity, a different race, a different age, who has a different body, a different background, a different set of lived experiences. And then to really learn how to relate to them and to use that as a lens to look at yourself, to look at how you interact with the people around you and the communities around you, and then to really inspire your curiosity. I think that's something that I really love doing, is really holding a space to encourage you to be curious.
And I'm curious, sorry, Micah, go ahead. Were you going to add to that?
God, I just love that so much.
Me too.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say how much I love that. And I guess the only other thing I'd add is that we all know what it feels like when we're acknowledged and when we feel seen. It's such an amazing feeling. It's like when, if you think back at the best birthday that you ever had, why was it so great? Maybe because the people around you really were celebrating you. And I think if every day could be our birthday, that would be tiring, but also really wonderful in many ways. And I think Walk in My Shoes is a celebration of the variation that makes us who we are as people, and allows us to break down the conversations that are holding us back from really being able to not vilify each other and exist together in a way that feels authentic and feels joyous.
Yeah, and exactly. And I mean, and how both of you just framed that, it captures perfectly why I think and why I thought a year ago when I went through it, the time is so ripe for a project like this, an experience like this, and the dialogues, both externally and internally, that I think it really jumpstarts. And especially during this time in our nation and in our society, it's incredibly useful and important. And I'm so thrilled that we can all still be here together tonight. So I just wanted to say that to the two of you. But I am curious, if you don't mind, are there any specific experiences that from the two of you that influenced the development of this piece?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Thank you so much for your reflection and your enthusiasm first. I know for me personally, I have a very strong personal connection to how this idea started. Back in 2018, when Micah and I founded Playground of Empathy, we spent that summer coming up with different concepts for different experiences centered around emotion topics and societal topics. And I was deep in my own gender identity journey at that time, and I was just starting to explore the possibility of coming out to friends and family as transgender, as non-binary, and so I was inspired to think about an experience that would help people understand what it might be like to go through that questioning and to go through that experience of feeling like the way that society has structured gender for me isn't quite working.
Wonderful. And Micah, any specific personal experiences that you'd like to share or that stand out in your mind?
Well, on the cognitive level, I, previous to Playground of Empathy, was a founder of an organization that created the world's #1 escape room, according to TripAdvisor. And we did really fun projects for Google and Disney and the Diabetes Fund, which was actually my favorite in many ways. And so all of that time and experience led me to kind of ask myself, what do I really want? What is that thing that feels truly motivational in experience? And I think it's the ability to take down all of the walls in the categories that we make in our minds about who we are and who other people are. Like even the idea of immersion is just this idea of kind of saying, is this conversation about, like there's this one, what is it? This philosophical question, without getting too lofty, but the question is like, if you take your head out of your body and you put it into another body, is it still you? And so you can like wax poetically about that all evening, right? But you can also say, like, what is that question really asking? It's asking, what is the soul and who are we? And I think the question of identity in many ways is also asking that. But we're in an imperfect world where this question has dramatically huge effects on people's lives. And it has on mine too. So to go away from the cognitive, I'd say that growing up as a child of parents from different races, different backgrounds, growing up in a homogeneously white culture, and then the most mixed culture possible, and having that dichotomy just had such a profound impact on my life and my sense of identity. And I think that's an exploration that I have the honor to be having while sharing the Walk in My Shoes experience. So it continues to be an ongoing joy in my life, as I know it is in Kelly's.
Well, thank you both for sharing those insights and those experiences. Before we jump into our first video tonight, what do you hope that our audience who's watching out there gain from this experience and being here with us tonight?
Ooh, can I go first this time? Since
I was gonna ask you to if you went first last time.
Yeah. We are all so colorful. And as was the phrase of the Black and Design Conference at the Graduate School of Design at Harvard last year, the future is color. The future is color. We have so many parts of us, and we're so granular, and we're so detailed. There's so much nuance in each of us. There's so much to be celebrated. And the Walk in My Shoes experience is an opportunity to really see ourselves through so many lenses by really authentically connecting to the experiences of others. So I think this is an opportunity to live into the fulfillment of life that we're all looking for.
Kelly, anything to add?
That was perfectly said. I don't have anything to add.
Oh, come on, stop. We must have those. I like so want to know what's on your mind right now. Really?
I hope that this opens a doorway for you. I hope that it's enjoyable. I hope that it's something that you want to return to, and I hope it inspires you to look more deeply at yourself and at the people around you. And I think that can be a really wonderful place to begin conversations.
Perfectly said. So before we get into the Walk in My Shoes experience, we thought it would be great for you all to just know a little bit about how it came together, the development, more about the incredible work that these two and the team at Playground of Empathy are doing. So we have first an introductory video. Kelly, Micah, can you set this video up and introduce this video for us?
Yeah, thank you, James. This video is a celebration of our journey in sharing this experience, in creating this experience, and yeah, this video bring me a lot of joy to create, and I hope that it brings you a lot of joy to watch.
Yeah, I would also say I think it's a way of us framing our why, which is hopefully also framing your why too. Like, why are we here? What we're about to go through, like, why are we doing it? On kind of a macro level, right? Like, at this particular time, in this particular month, before the month that's coming, like, why are we spending 7 p.m. on a Wednesday evening doing this? I think there's a really, really good reason. And so I'm so glad that you're here joining us. And so this video attempts to kind of talk about that. And we really hope you enjoy it.
And with that, you can enjoy this amazing journey.
Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and my grandmother, Helen Neese, both served as judges in the D.C. courts in the 1980s. Since then, they became very good colleagues and friends. And I've known Justice Ginsburg my whole life and have visited with her at the Supreme Court twice a year since as long as I can remember. Last year, my daughter and I were with her and asked her a very specific question, which was, when you think about our nation, what is one of your biggest concerns? The first thing she said was what social media is doing to our country. It has become a way for us to communicate with like-minded individuals. We're no longer having conversations in a personal way with people of opposing views. It's polarizing our nation. We've just stopped listening to each other. We're not listening to each other.
According to people our grandparents' age, we used to be able to actually have a real conversation with someone who disagrees with us and to enter into a civil dialogue about those differences without vilifying each other. The polarization that we're facing right now is so hard.
I know how you feel. It's like we're paralyzed with polarization. Talking about how we're treated differently by having emotionally intelligent conversations is more important than ever.
Which is why, since 2019, we've been on an immersive walk in my shoes journey that allows you to take a real step towards seeing, hearing, and understanding someone else.
Someone who is similar to you because we're human, but also so different that it might change your life to see the world through their eyes.
And the more you understand someone else's identity, the greater awareness and appreciation you will begin to have for all the layers that make up your own identity. So today is Saturday, March 23rd. Today we're writing the scripts based on interviews that we've done with different people, friends of ours, people that we've met, and these scripts will be the basis for the point of view films for the Walk in My Shoes, which we are building a prototype for and taking to Boston in 4 weeks, which is crazy. This is really the first time that we've really decided to leap off of the diving board, and it's really scary and really exciting and very emotional.
To be able to ignore what I am for a second and see how someone else feels and maybe how I would feel if I was in that position.
It was a shape-shifting experience.
I think we've got to walk. Walk that shaky bridge across a playground of empathy. Because that's where most of life is, in the lives of others.
On the other side of that bridge, we can begin to climb, slide, and swing together as people.
Then we can begin to see how our diversity is the norm.
It's something to cherish, celebrate, and be curious about.
We're on the last functional day of the tour, where we are going to Massachusetts General Hospital. Anybody want to say anything?
We're so tired.
We just finished the last person running through the shoe of our tour. To Boston, and then Charlottesville, and then Arizona, and then Boston, and then Boston, and then Boston. And we've been going nonstop since August 10th, and it is October 7th today.
I'm missing this person that we just met.
I am forever changed from this experience.
This is your curious journey, where we're the guides, the shoe is the magical place.
And the heroes are the beating hearts of you, every single one of you, with the courage to step inside and walk in the shoe.
And we are back, and I am here with Micah Kessel and Kelly Van Dilla of Playground of Empathy. I agree that video was so wonderful to watch, and I wasn't even there on part of the tour, but I think it was really a perfect way to, Micah, answer the question you said of why. Why are we here? Why was this piece developed? And really the perfect way to set up the experience that we are all about to share together virtually, but still together. And we are about to jump into Walk in My Shoes experience. I know our audience is waiting. They can't wait. But before we do, any words of wisdom, Micah, Kelly, or any way that you want to introduce and set this experience up for us?
Take it away, Micah.
Okay, I'll start, but you continue. Okay. Kelly might say this, but I'm going to say it too. It's okay if you hear it twice. This is an invitational experience. We're inviting you to step inside, and it's also important that even though we can't see you right now, that you know that we're also asking for your consent. This is an immersive experience about identity through the lens of race, gender, age, income, body type, political views, religion, sexual orientation, any piece of identity that makes up who you are. And would you like to answer a few questions and be part of the experience? And even though we can't see you, if you would just give yourself a little nod in your head or a feeling of affirmation right now, so that you know that your whole self is with you on this journey.
Thank you, Micah. I think the only thing that I would add is that we like to try to create this as a space of non-assumption as much as possible. It really is an experience that works differently for each person. Different people have different emotions come up and process in different speeds and in different ways. And I like to embrace that. I want to welcome all emotions and anything that comes up, any thoughts. This is really a space for you to be curious about how you're feeling.
Yeah, and actually, let's just take a breath together, hey? Like, I don't know what days everyone has had, but I'm sure we can all use a deep breath. So I'm just gonna go ahead and lead that for a second. Kelly, can you watch me and say breathe in and breathe out so I don't have to?
All right.
Okay.
And close your eyes if you're comfortable. James, feel free to join. And inhale. And exhale.
Yeah, just leave your whole day behind. We're here now together. This is where we are. And now, oh yeah, one last thing. Maybe, if you have a pen and paper, that's great. If you don't, no worries. You can always just think about things. We're going to give you a little time to think about things throughout the experience. If you're with a friend or with other people, just give each other a little look right now, like, hey, we're going to have conversations. And maybe give each other a little nod, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So here we are and we're doing this. And that's a wonderful thing. And be grateful for yourself. And yeah, we're going to be here with you, holding space together. And now, please enjoy the Walk in My Shoes experience.
Hi. So welcome to the Walk in My Shoes experience. We're very, very glad to have you here today. Before we begin, I'd love for you to just share your name, your pronouns, what you do for a living, and 3 instances of emotions that you're feeling in this very moment. And if you're watching at home, go ahead and just take a pen and paper and write these things down. So maybe Kelly can model this for us. Kelly, would you be open to modeling this?
My name is Kelly Vandilla. I'm a founder at Playground of Empathy, and my pronouns are they and she. And I am feeling a little bit nervous, tired, and happy.
I am Ibrahim Sumaira, and I am a state delegate. I'm also a dentist, and my pronouns are he, him, his. And the 3 emotions that I am thinking about right now are connectivity, connectedness, I guess is a better word, to others. More complete, and soulful.
Hi, I'm Lisa Feldman Barrett. I'm a University Distinguished Professor at Northeastern University, and I have research appointments at Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital. My pronouns are she, her, feeling gratitude, curious.
My name is Catherine Neese, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I am a professional collaborative musician and artist. And my 3 emotions that I'm feeling right now are anticipation, playfulness, and deep curiosity.
My name is Matt Thomas. I am in law enforcement and security. I'm a training, development, and communication specialist where I work. My pronouns are he and him.
My full name is Kelly or Kelgen Dowd. I'm a Nigerian. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am a full-time MBA and MA design leadership student at Johns Hopkins. I feel very happy and I feel relaxed.
My name is Dallas Dukar. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the CEO of Trans Health Northampton, and I am feeling buoyant. I am feeling loved, and I am feeling energized.
My name is Jacqueline Russell. I am Dana, connecting from the lands of the Pamayatma people, and I am president and founder of Grown Up Navajo, which is my company. My pronouns are she, hers, and Essa. And I'm feeling a little frenzied. Content and excited.
Hello, I'm Sante Johnson, and I am a global artist, she and hers. And my feelings are hope, optimism, and engagement.
Hi. So I am Sandra Corazon Lee. She, her, and hers. My work right now is at Richmond Public Schools. I'm the Chief Talent Officer. And let's see, I feel curious, hopeful, and anxious.
Okay, so are you ready to answer a few questions and be part of the experience? Maybe just give yourself a little nod or an internal nod. Great. Okay, so the first question for you is, how do you see yourself in terms of identity through the lens of race, gender, age, income, body type, religion, sexual orientation? Really, any piece of identity or pieces of identity that make up who you are, feel free to write them down and share them if you're with someone right now. How do you see yourself in terms of your identity?
I identify as an immigrant and as a woman of color. Someone who has really come from a very working class background and has also experienced privilege on a world class level, and seen the opportunities, as well as the challenges that different people from a variety of backgrounds experience. So with that, really, I see myself as an advocate as well, and trying to bridge many different worlds.
I identify as a Dinahatsa, or Navajo woman. I am a mother, partner, and really as I like to say, a lovetarian, so committed to love and justice, and really working toward the fulfillment of Indigenous sovereignty and liberation.
I see myself as a cis female. And I think just the longer I'm on this earth, the more I am learning about what that actually means and how to healthfully express that in a way that makes me feel empowered. So yeah, I consider myself as half Latina, and also figuring out what that means.
Right now, the features that are most salient are probably friend and scientist. Well, I think now I'm very aware that other people see me as a white person. I don't see myself as a white person. I've never seen myself that way. In fact, the first time I came to this country, I became distinctly aware that I was being treated like a white person. And it was a novel experience for me because it wasn't what I had experienced up until that point. But I almost always think of myself as a woman, I would say. I'm very, very aware of the fact that I have a vagina that I cannot leave at home. and that makes me a target. It makes me, well, target's not the right word, makes me vulnerable. It makes me vulnerable in ways that it makes me vulnerable.
I am a white male, and I am 45 years old. You know, I always said age is really ain't nothing but a number. But now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm potentially halfway home. And, you know, what is that? How do I feel about that? What does that mean?
So my identity is always changing, I would say, never permanent. But the closest thing to that feels like this concept of gender for me, which is really important, and my identity as female or a woman. I'm a millennial. I am white. I am a part of a very small percentage of the world that has access to so many resources. And I also identify as liberal politically.
Given the interchange of the Middle East and its peoples throughout history, I see myself as a descendant of refugees. I do view myself as well as somebody who is Arab, who is Muslim as well. Given that those identities, as I had declared earlier, have had a lot of injustices faced against them in the modern history. I see myself as also American, something that is, I think, a new identity in the context of the historical context that I think of, the thousands of years out there in the world that I relate to of history.
I am a woman of color, but in my mind, it never occurs to me that I'm a woman of whatever. I mean, it just doesn't occur to me that I'm different in any way until someone approaches me and I see in their eyes their reflection of who I am. And then that puts me in the box.
But yeah, if we had to go with the traditional stereotype or box checking, Black, immigrant, gay, what else? Tall, slim. There's a lot. I can keep checking box and box and box and box, but in my soul, I just see someone that belongs to the universe.
Thank you. And would you mind sharing a significant time where you feel that you were treated differently because of any piece of your identity?
One that sticks out in my mind is my brother, who actually is transgender male. And so probably 25 years or so ago, we were both late teens, early 20s. And I'll never forget this, because I had started out in law enforcement and security that long ago. And he was excited for his birthday. And it was actually at the time she was excited for her birthday. And so we went up to what used to be Leechmere up north, a little bit away from our house, and knew exactly what he wanted and picked it out, was handed it to him, paid for it. And on the way out the door, got stopped by loss prevention and questioned as to why we stole. I felt taken advantage of. I felt, how dare you accuse us of stealing something when clearly you don't have all the facts? I wondered if it had anything to do with me, or if it had everything to do with Mel and the way Mel dressed and the fact that he did look like a girl, but dressed like a boy. And that really, really made me angry. And, you know, I think we probably talked about it. And here I am 25, 30 years later, remembering. I can practically picture it vividly walking out of the store. I can't picture who it was, but I can picture the situation. And it still makes me angry that something like that could happen.
As a nurse, being a female in being a woman in a psychiatric setting, inpatient psychiatric setting, when I was an inpatient nurse, there were tons and tons of examples of just verbal abuse and harassment and just really inappropriate behavior that prior to transitioning, I did not experience at all. And it was just so clear. I would say powerless, sad, and angry.
Thank you.
Yeah. So very early on in my life, I had been exposed to many forms of structural discrimination that I wasn't fully comprehending, because my father was an organizer and activist in the Chicagoland community. And in the process of that, my father was targeted himself, and he was not allowed re-entry back into the United States on suspicions that were later found to be unwarranted 11 years later in the court system. But those 11 years were very painful.
Okay. And the last question I'll ask for now is, what is a significant item of clothing that you own or have owned, it can be from any time in your life, that has had a deep and symbolic meaning for you? What's an item of clothing that's meant a lot to you, and why? What did it symbolize?
Okay, it's this robe. It's my rose robe. This was given to me when I was 22 by my abuela. And she loved going shopping for me. That was one of her favorite things to do, and she always made me feel so loved and so spoiled. And she was like, "Mija, this is for you. You got to wear this. It's sexy. It's beautiful. You could be yourself. Go wear this." And it just makes me feel very feminine, and it makes me feel very connected to her. And it's soft, it's lovely, it's silky, it's sensual. So I think it just kind of embodies all of the things about being a woman that I identify with.
I have to have a jacket, because if I have a jacket, I can go outside. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, jackets can change, but once I have the jacket, button the jacket up, I have to have a hood so nobody sees me, right? So I have to, like, I can like hide, I can go around, and I can go everywhere in my jacket. It's like I'm invisible. Like, I get to, like, once I have my jacket, I'm good to go.
Okay, so now that you've answered a few questions, I think it's time for you to begin your journey. And in order to do so, Kelly is going to take you on a short guided visualization. Go ahead and take your screen and put it on full screen. And once you do, you can close your eyes just for a few minutes as Kelly guides you into the Walk in My Shoes world. All right, here we go.
So we're going to walk in the shoes of I. I is a real person. Now imagine that you're standing in front of a doorway. I'm standing to one side and Micah is standing to the other. I'm holding a garment bag, a red garment bag, and I offer it to you. As you take it, you can hold it by the hooks of the clothes hanger, or you can drape it over your arm. You feel that there's a certain weight. There's a number of different items inside. Maybe you're curious about what they are. I invite you to open the door, and as you do, you see that there's a large, expansive walk-in closet ahead of you. I invite you to step in. And as you do, you notice that the light is warm and soft. The temperature is just right. Not too warm, not too cold. Perhaps the light is tinted, just a certain color. Maybe it's your favorite color. The walls are soft. There's a desk and a mirror and a chair. And to your left, there's a hook where you can hang the garment bag. Now, as you open the garment bag, you're going to hear Ai's voice. And as you're introduced to her items, I encourage you to really imagine what they feel like. Imagine what it might be like to put them on.
So, who's one person that you would wish this experience for if you could invite anyone and be sure that they came? Friends, family, maybe a colleague, someone living, not living. If you could wish this experience for anyone at all in the world, who would that be? Maybe not by name even, but relationally to you, who are they?
I would say my 3 daughters, because I feel like, knowing what I know about them and seeing how they've evolved over the last, they're 10, 9, and 5. I think that this is a very powerful experience and a real world experience in a controlled environment. And I think that this is extremely, this is great. And I would prefer that they don't see certain cruelties in the world live and in person while they're in the middle of it, as opposed to, real world scenarios that are presented in a learning experience. I think I could see the 3 of them sitting in front of their Google Chromebooks with you going through this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of my extended family members comes to mind.
I would say my former boss too. Yeah, because I believe she have a lot to learn about, about the beauty of diversity of people. She has a lot to learn in that regard.
I would want every kid that's growing up, that's going through school, to be able to see something like this. I feel like these are kindergarten rules, and like empathy, understanding, listening, and they just get lost on this. And I feel like this way of learning could be so revolutionary to like a whole new generation.
So this last question, I think, is really important. Let's say you find yourself in a moment in the future where someone's talking with you about I, and they're being not very understanding of I, and she's not there. What would you say to that person to help them grow their empathy? Or another way to put it, you know that moment where 10 minutes later in life you realize exactly what you wished you had said? What if you could prepare that now? What would you say to that person from your whole self to help them become more empathic? And just take a moment to think about it. Maybe even say it out loud.
I have a feeling that if this were you or your brother or your daughter that you were talking about, you probably would be talking about them differently. And I'm wondering what you're actually feeling in this moment. And if it's anger, or like, why don't we talk more about how you're feeling, and let's figure out where a lot of these feelings are coming from.
I would say let's stop for a minute and just consider I's perspective.
I would want a member of my family to go through this, and particularly go through this before the election, before they vote.
I think we have to I think we have to look at it from their perspective and see the world through their eyes. And we need to be open-minded in terms of how we feel about specific things like I, or what she's going through.
I would say, hold up, think about that again. Why did you say that?
Mine was, let's see another perspective. Let's try to look from their perspective.
Would try to correct their behavior by referring to myself without saying the words you, them, pointing fingers. Essentially, I'd refrain from pointing fingers if it has to happen in that moment.
So would you pardon me to say this? So listen and put yourself in their shoes or consider another perspective.
I want to come back to the comment that you made. I was really baffled in the moment because you're being very rude and disrespectful to this friend of mine, and want you to know that I don't agree with like what you said, and think that it's not fair or compassionate of you to be treating this person like this around me or anybody. So I just want to make sure I voice that.
It's much better if you can ask questions that bring people to an epiphany themselves than to just tell them this is what, right? But the general message is, if you want to be accepted for who you are in that moment, then you must strive to return the favor.
Immersive is a great word, and eye-opening, humbling. It's just like this was amazing, and to be able to walk in her shoes and see what she sees and hear what she hears, I think is that's a huge thing, because we can be reflective of ourselves, but until we walk a mile in their shoes and see what they see, I think, and feel what they feel, I think is a huge thing. Because without that experience, if people have never experienced that, then how do they empathize? Or how do they understand? Or how do they act in specific situations when they've never experienced it before?
I think this entire experience has just brought to light a lot of my own ignorance just about so many of these issues. And it's made me even more thirsty to try to understand and to really ask the right questions, talk to people. I think that's the other thing, is that I think if I notice that I may have made a mistake or I accidentally offended someone, I think I just withdraw or get nervous. And I think this experience has made me see it's okay. You can just talk to them and say, hey, I think I made a mistake. Can you please help me here? I want to understand. So it's not something that needs to be tiptoed around. It's something that needs to be talked about, and very openly. So that was really helpful. It just kind of made me feel like this is a user-friendly situation.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for your time and your energy and your presence. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for walking in I's shoes. I'm really humbled to be here with all of you, and to hold space for you to share your emotions and your thoughts so bravely and vulnerably. Thank you.
Well, that was quite a journey. Thank you so much for taking part in it and going on this walk with us. We hope you'll join us for many more walks. For now, just be grateful for your courageous sharing, for your vulnerable thinking. Have compassion for yourself, and be proud of this journey that you've made and your part in it. Take some time to go on a walk physically. Process your feelings and your emotions at the speed that you need to feel them. And again, know that whatever that is, it's absolutely welcome, and you're allowed to be feeling those things. All right. See you next time.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Micah Kessel and Kelly Van Dilla, founders of Playground of Empathy and two of the forces behind Walk in My Shoes, that incredible virtual experience we all just got to go through together. Micah and Kelly, thank you so much. I'm going to keep saying this over and over and over again tonight. We're just so appreciative of you working so hard to turn this into a digital experience for us to still offer tonight for our audiences to sort of have that time to reflect inwardly. And I think this is the second time I was able to go through it, this time virtually and through the perspective of others. And it's just an incredibly special opportunity. I know our audience has tons of thoughts and questions, and we are going to get to those in just a little bit. So if you have them after going through that experience, you can submit those by going to slido.com, SLIDO.com, and entering the code in my shoes, all one word. But I do want to keep moving on because we have one more portion tonight that is also very important. We have a wonderful interview with Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, who is the director at the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab at Northeastern University. And Lisa's going to talk a little bit about the science behind this experience. And then when we come back from the interview, Lisa will be here on the stream. It'll be the four of us on here, and we'll dive into a Q&A. So make sure you get your questions in. But Micah and Kelly, I want to turn it over to you to sort of introduce Lisa and introduce this interview.
Thank you, James. So, yeah, our collaboration with the Interdisciplinary Affective Science Lab is one that will be addressed in the interview through the questions. I think the only thing that I would say is that I'm not actually sure if this made the interview. So one thing that I will say is how something that really struck me about what Lisa said lately is how, science and the humanities and what interdisciplinary means, and also kind of blurring those lines is probably the best bet that, and now I'm turning this into my own thought now, so to be clear, but it's probably the best bet that we have in actually being able to really tackle pro-social and pro-environmental challenges. I think our work together is a testament to that shared belief that we need each other and we need the diversity of our thinking in order to innovate and really move forward together. So I think that's all I would say. Kelly, is there anything that you would like to add?
I'm complete.
All right. Well, then without further ado, please enjoy this brief but very potent interview with Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett.
In How Emotions Are Made, one of the big takeaways, I think, is to understand that variation is the norm, to quote you. And we're kind of talking about that now. In 7.5 lessons, you talk about why that variability is a good thing. Can you say more about that? Why that variability is a good thing?
So before Darwin, a species was a category of animals that had an essence, a sort of a pure platonic form. So a Cocker Spaniel, there would be like a perfect Cocker Spaniel with a perfect Cocker Spaniel-like coat and tail length and color and eye size and ear size and so on. And that any variation that you see in all the Cocker Spaniels around the world is just error. And Darwin came along and said, no, that variability is real. That's what natural selection acts on. It acts on that variability. So before Darwin, people thought about biological categories as the idea that that there's a type, a perfect type for each category, and the variation, the type is real and the variation is error. And Darwin came along and said, no, the variation is real. The type is a myth. It's just an abstraction. It's not real in nature. Variation is what's real. And variation is important. Evolutionary biologists have learned over a century and a half that variation is extremely important to the survivability of a species, meaning that if you want a species to continue to evolve and survive, the characteristics of that species, of the individuals, has to vary. And the same principle, so first of all, I'll say variation in humans is to be valued and respected and embraced. And, you can think about cultural variation that way too, that different cultures have different practices and norms and values. And it's good to have lots of different solutions to being human because not all of them will work all of the time. And so from a species level perspective, variation is a very good thing. Even at an individual level, though, I would say variation is a really good thing. It's really good for you to have a large repertoire of behaviors. It's really good for you to be able to think in a large repertoire of ways. It's really good for you to be able to take on perspectives of a large number of people. It's good to have empathy because from the standpoint of your own personal adaptability, you will be better equipped to deal with changing situations when you yourself have more variation in the kinds of experiences that your brain is equipped to make.
What would you say is the basis for empathy?
Humans are a social species. We influence each other's nervous systems without realizing it. If you and I are in the same room and we like each other and we trust each other, our heart rates will synchronize, our breathing will synchronize, and so on. It's like a dance that we do with each other. And that influences partly how I know how you're feeling is because my physical state is somewhat dependent on your physical state. The other part of empathy has to do more with how we make sense of those mood-related or affect-related cues. So if my brain is making a guess about what you're thinking and feeling, it's usually based on something to do with my past knowledge about you, my knowledge about the situation that we're in, and something about the state of my own body, which is in resonance or not with yours. Yeah, so empathy is really my ability to put my brain's ability to put myself in a state, to conjure a state that is very similar to the one that you're in, or one that's somewhat that's in line with the one that you're in.
Do you believe that experiences like these can be helpful for creating empathy? And if so, why?
Yeah, so I would say they're very helpful, and I'm going to say that they're unfortunately helpful. And the reason why it's unfortunate is that, human brains have this amazing capacity, well, many brains have this capacity to do what's called conceptual combination. And that means that your brain can take past experiences that are similar to the present and combine them in novel ways so that if you're ever faced with something new, a situation that's new or a person that you've never met before, or you're faced with an event that you've never experienced, your brain can kind of draw on its past experience and say, okay, well, what is similar to the present? And then it can use that knowledge in order to make a good guess about what's going on here or who this person is. But notice that it all sort of revolves around similarity, right? And so if you're very dissimilar to the person who's in front of you or in a situation that you don't face, it can be very hard for your brain to conjure a past experience that will help make sense of the present. When your brain can't do that, with language or with sounds or with visual images, when you can't do that, you are experientially blind. That's what philosophers call it. And so a failure of empathy is really being experientially blind to someone else's experience in the moment.
What about facing the science community? How do you suppose experiences like these can be important for the science community or for the development of science?
Something that scientists struggle with tremendously, at least behavioral scientists, is creating subjective realism in experience. So we are limited to what we can do with people in a laboratory. We can show them movies, we can show them images, We can have them interact with other people in a controlled way. We can also measure people out in the real world by just, not by experimentation, but just by sampling what they do. But, so the problem in the lab is that it's all very artificial and constrained. And the problem with out in the world is that you have no control over what's happening, and all you can do is measure. And so this kind of an experience, is important because you can create authentic experiences with subjective realism, but in a way where you can control the features of the experience in a sense. So it's a little tighter control. I would say it's more like a real life version of like virtual reality, I would say.
So Walk in My Shoes is an attempt to cultivate new experiences for people in order to give them perspectives that allow them to be more the architect of their own experience, to feel more comfortable with the variation of humankind. How can we cultivate new experiences for ourselves in order to architect our lives more flexibly in the future?
Anything which puts you into contact with the experiences of somebody else, because that's how humans learn. Heinrich wrote a book called The Secret of Our Success. And in this book, he talks about how explorers in the 19th century would go off to, Antarctica or some part of the world and die unless they made contact with indigenous people who knew how to live in that environment. So you don't have to learn everything for yourself firsthand. You can learn from other people. You learn by listening and watching and eventually copying. We're taking in their experience and we're learning from it. So we don't actually ourselves have had to go through it in order to learn from it and be able to use it in the future. And so I think if you combine these moments of curation also with moments of mindfulness, which gives you a degree of flexibility in how you experience the world. So if I can experience somebody else's, actually embody the experience of somebody else who I disagree with, I am much less likely to vilify them. And if I'm much less likely to vilify them, I'm probably more able to have a conversation with them and work with them.
What consolation is there for folks who are really downtrodden by the level of perception that they have that the world is full of people who are inexcusably doing and aware of doing bad things that they're doing that are having such a horrible effect on such a mass of people?
I completely share your frustration. I think a couple of things are at play. One is that people are metabolically encumbered. And, some people listening to this may go, what? What is she saying? What is she saying? I think, your brain evolved to control your body. It evolved to run a budget for your body. It evolved to do many other things too, but you see and you feel and you think and you hear in the service of that body budget. Your brain is not budgeting money, it's budgeting glucose and salt and water and all the other things that are needed to run your body efficiently. Every time your brain is faced with learning something new or faced with moving, it has to ask itself, figuratively, is this worth it? Is it worth it to me? Now, what do you do with your financial budget when you are running a deficit? You stop spending, or you might slow your spending. What does it mean for a human body budget to be running a deficit? Well, it means that you're not sleeping enough. Or maybe you're eating pseudo food that isn't healthful. It just looks like food and it tastes like food, but doesn't actually have a lot of nutrients in it. Maybe you're not exercising enough. Maybe you're socially isolated. Maybe you are financially, in monetary terms, encumbered. Maybe you don't make enough money to feed your family. And we live in a culture that is, I mean, it's brilliantly designed to really force a body budget into bankruptcy. So let's imagine that people are metabolically encumbered. What do you do when you're financially encumbered? You stop spending. What does a brain do when it financially is encumbered? It stops spending too. What are the two most expensive things your brain can do? It can move your body, or it can learn something new, something unexpected. And the interesting thing about this is that you can't detect this really well. It's not like you have some kind of like technical watch, like an Apple Watch or something, which tells you, oh, you need X amount of glucose and Y amount of water. And so, eat this or drink that. No, what you have is this sort of affective system, which tells you, I feel like shit. I feel great. I feel full of energy. I feel tired. I feel comfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I mean, that's it's like this really fuzzy message that you're getting of the state of your body budget at any given moment. And you don't know what it means. So we have a lot of people who are feeling really not great because their body budget is encumbered. And as a consequence, they're looking for a solution. Like, what is causing this? Because they don't know. And unfortunately, we're surrounded by messages which hold those answers, right? So one message could be, well, the world is a zero-sum game, man. And if you aren't doing okay, it's because somebody else is doing much better than you. And if that person butted in line because they're an immigrant or they're this or they're that, then they're taking your spot. That's a narrative that people have, right? Or the narrative could be that they have to make sense of why they feel the way they feel is we're all human. The starting place for humans should be equal. Everyone should have, the only way you can have a meritocracy is if everyone has an equal chance of doing well. And we don't all have an equal chance of doing well. And it's unfair. And that unfairness is existentially profound. That could be making people miserable. Those are really two very different views of the world, right? In moments like this, where everything feels horrible, and it just feels like things are getting worse and worse and worse, the thing to remember is that you do have some control over, you might not be able to control the big things that are happening, but you do have some control over the smaller things. You can be curious about your own experience. Like, if you're feeling unpleasant or you're feeling uncomfortable, consider multiple options for why that's the case. Don't just consider the easiest explanation. You can be curious about other people's experience. The founding fathers of this country, and maybe the founding mothers too, but who knows, because they weren't given a voice. The founding fathers of this country really believed, it seems, that the way towards a better union was through debate and argument around points of disagreement. That keeps everything in check, and that creates a better country. And if that's true, then that means we all have to basically have enough body budgeting resources in order to listen to each other and have that conversation. This is not a Pollyanna-ish view. It's a view that says it matters how we treat each other. It matters how we talk to each other. We have to get rid of this culture of casual brutality. What we say to each other matters. But even more so, how well we listen to each other, matters even more in some ways. When the three of you came up to me after my talk, in no way did I realize in that moment the really profound power of what you were trying to accomplish. I was really thinking in terms of the science, this is a great opportunity for being able to craft more realistic experiences for subjects in experiments. Like, it really occurred to me that I really need what you're doing.
I'm in the best mood now. Thank you. This was so fun. I love you so much.
I love you too.
And we are back for one last time tonight. And I am here still with Micah and Kelly from Playground of Empathy. And we are joined by a third very special guest, Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. Lisa, hello. It's so great to see you.
It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much for including me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for taking the time to sit down for that interview as well and provide that insight into your work and this sort of scientific aspect that went into this experience. And we're going to brag about you a little bit for just a second, if that's okay. For everyone out there, Lisa actually has a brand new book that is going to be released in just a few weeks in November called 7.5 Lessons About the Brain. And tonight, for being here with us, all of you have the chance to pre-order a signed copy of the book through our friends at Porter Square Books. And you can do that by going to the link that's on your screen right now, portersquarebooks.com/lbf-at-mos. And we're going to leave that a link up all the rest of the event so that you can write that down and then go visit our friends at Porter Square Books and take care of ordering your copy, because it's going to be a must read for sure based on that interview. So we are nearing the end of our time tonight, so I just want to jump into the Q&A if that's okay. If you have questions, you're still able to submit those by going to slido.com and entering the code in my shoes. The first question is actually for you, Lisa. You have written 2 books now. The first was published in 2017, How Emotions Are Made, and then, of course, the upcoming 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, which will be released in November. Can you talk a little bit about the difference that went into writing both of these books?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. Well, I'll start with How Emotions Are Made. How Emotions Are Made is a pretty standard popular science book. It's written with a narrative structure. It has chapters. It's taking science and digesting it into a story with narrative elements. It refers to experiments. It's a little bit different than maybe other popular science books because I talk about my friends and my family. I give examples from my own life. But really, it's a book that empowers people to be the architect of their own experience in their lives, to curate the kind of experience, the kind of way of being in the world that they want to have through the power of scientific knowledge. The book examines the themes of human nature through the lens of the science of emotion. Most people who pick up How Emotions Are Made are people who are interested in science, so they might not be scientists, but they're interested in science. After 3.5 years, the book is still selling pretty solidly. I'm still receiving emails from people on a daily basis, actually, which is pretty gratifying. 7.5 Lessons is a popular science book that's written for people who don't think of themselves as interested in science. So like many scientists right now, and I think many people, there's a concern about the public's trust in science and their understanding of the value of science. It's been a hard couple of years for a lot of people for different reasons, but definitely it's been hard on science. And so I wanted to compose a book of essays that were small, that would sort of show people the fun and the beauty and the utility of science. Science and philosophy are like tools for living, and they're tools that you can use not only to entertain yourself, but also to consider really big issues about human nature, about what kind of human you want to be, and how you want to treat other people. So I decided that I want to challenge myself and write a book that is really a set of little essays where each essay covers, a couple of nuggets of science about the brain that probably people don't know. Many neuroscientists actually don't even know. Some of the information is so new. But do it in a gentle, kind of easy, sort of easily accessible or easily digestible way. And use that as a way of interrogating or inviting people to think about really big questions like, are we rational creatures? Is rationality really the absence of emotion, or is there some other way to understand what rationality means? Why does loneliness actually make people physically sick and more likely to die earlier? How is it that we actually create a society that grants individual rights and freedoms to people when the human nervous system evolved to be biologically dependent on other humans? That tension is something that we're all experiencing right now, but nobody's actually really talking about it that way. So, 7.5 lessons doesn't really, it sort of invites people to think about these things through the lens of science. It gives people a couple of fun tidbits that they can, each essay gives people a couple of fun tidbits they can use to entertain their friends, at a dinner party when we all can have dinner parties again, or I guess I should say on Zoom. It doesn't really tell people what to think. It just really invites people to think, and it does it in a way, I hope, that feels like kind of an adventure, kind of like a romp. Because we all need a little bit of fun right now.
We do. And tonight has provided a little bit of that for me, and I know our audience as well. This is a follow-up question to that, Lisa. What do you hope readers will gain by reading the upcoming release, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, especially those sort of non-science readers that you mentioned?
Yeah, so I think what I'm hoping is that it will show people, first of all, the value of scientific inquiry. So there are a lot. I mean, for example, would you ever think that learning something about the evolution of the brain, like why do we even have brains? Where did brains come from? Creatures didn't always have brains. In 550 million years ago, the world was ruled by creatures that didn't have brains. I know it sort of feels like right now the world might be ruled by people who don't have brains, but creatures that don't have brains. But the question is like, well, where did brains come from? Why do we have them? And actually, how is that relevant to your day-to-day life? And it is relevant. And that's the amazing thing. So I think what the book does really is it invites you to be curious. It invites you to be curious about your own experience. It invites you to be curious about other people's experience. It invites you to think about how responsible you are for your own behavior and how responsible you are for the well-being of other people around you. Just based on what we know about ourselves as a species, just based on what we know about our nervous systems and how our brains work.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, that's a taste of what you can expect, and you should pick up and pre-order your copy of the book. The link is on the screen. I just want to note, this may be confusing, but I just want to make sure if you do go to that link and it's not working, the B and the F at the end of the link may have gotten switched around. So I just want to make sure if you go to the link, it doesn't work, try portersquarebooks.com/LFB @-MOS, or at the very least, just go right to Porter Square Books. They'll take care of you. Email them.
You're going to make people work for it.
Their website.
You're making people work for it.
They're work for it, but it's going to be worth it. And so we apologize if that switch happened. But try both. Again, if LBF @MOS doesn't work, LFB @MOS should, or just go straight to Porter Square Books. You will want to pick up a copy, and it'll be signed. So we have a few more minutes. The next question is a great one that I'm going to sort of just ask all three of you. Could you discuss the relationship between the experience of empathy and personal healing? And then they said thank you for this evening. So who wants to take that one on?
Well,
Lisa,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, what I will say is that people struggle to have compassion for each other, but they struggle more to have compassion for themselves, actually, in my experience. And so I think learning to listen to other people and learning to be curious about other people's experience has a way of allowing you to turn that curiosity on yourself. I was actually really taken with Micah's narrative at the end, or interspersed, with in the experience of walking my shoes, because there were a number of times, Micah, where you said, whatever you're feeling, it's okay, and you're allowed to feel that, and you should feel it, and it's kind of this non-judgmental stance on your own experience. And there is some evidence to suggest that when you can take a non-judgmental stance on somebody else's experience, it allows you the flexibility and freedom to do that with yourself. And that is a really hard thing to do, I think.
Great.
Compassion for yourself is the first step towards, or a step towards self-acceptance.
Yeah, I'd love to build on that. I think that when we see someone behaving in a way that we can relate to, whether it's something that we don't want to adapt, or whether it's something that we do want to adapt, in line with that thinking around how it can be easier to have empathy for others, I think that, for those who do believe in kind of parts work, or looking at ourselves in different parts, I think that it can often shine light on a part of us that maybe doesn't get so much attention. Maybe a part that's been helping be a guard for other parts that are more vulnerable, just like a parent is a guard for a child. And so these different ways of behavior, these different scenes, because the brain is inside the head and doesn't necessarily know the difference between something that is real or that's enacted, in terms of the way that it impacts us. I mean, of course we see it, but in any event, I think having that dialogue with someone else's experience and being able to empathize around that is simultaneously having dialogue with a part of us that might also want that sort of attention.
There's a saying in Buddhism, that anger is a form of ignorance. And what that means really is that when you're furious with someone, you are ignorant to their perspective. And if you can, and I could use the language of science here, I could use the language of concepts and categories and, to explain what the brain is doing, but I'm going to say it in very general terms here, and then people can go to how emotions are made to read about the science behind what I'm saying. If you can take a different perspective on what someone is saying, and you try to actually see things from their perspective, no matter how objectionable you may find their perspective, your anger will dissipate. And that is healthy for you. So having the flexibility to change your perspective is actually, it's not, when I say that it's healing, I don't mean that in a metaphorical way. I mean, it's physically healthful for you to be able to do that. It's easier on your nervous system for you to be able to do that. And because really what you're doing is you're practicing different ways of making meaning out of the same sense data that you're faced with. And that's really what your brain is doing all the time. It's just figuring out ways to make meaning of the information that you're faced with.
I'd love to add a little bit to that.
Yes.
If that's okay. I think from my perspective, I get lost in this idea of imagining someone else's perspective and a lived experience in a difficult situation or a negatively associated situation. And I was just thinking to myself how I've discovered my own identity in terms of my gender journey is by really trying to understand other people's lived experience in actually a very positive way, and trying to imagine why are they feeling so happy and joyful? Why are they expressing themselves in this way? And that experience of trying to imagine what it's like for them to be in that really positive space has really helped me to reflect on myself.
That's wonderful. I mean, I think that is a perfect note to end the night on. This has been such a great journey. I want to end on one final question, and this is probably directed at Micah and Kelly. But Mallory says, it's so powerful to watch other people go through this experience. Have you, the two of you, having watched many people go through the walk in my shoes experience, have had any particularly surprising or inspiring experiences observing others?
Nice question, Mal. I'm going to give a trick answer, and I hope that's okay.
Sure.
I think the moment that we think that we understand the response, or that we predict that we're going to get it, is probably the moment that we need to take a vacation and take a break. Everyone's response is unique. If we stop hearing that our responses are unique, I mean, God, when we started working with Lisa, I remember it was at a time where I was just having, also from reading How Emotions Are Made, I was just walking around with this realization that every single thought and feeling and instance of emotion that we're having is utterly unique. We've never ever had that experience ever in our lives. We've never felt exactly this way ever in our lives. And the person in front of us has also never felt that way. And the combination of neural network activity that is happening is completely unique. There's billions and billions of variables. And so this moment right now is never going to happen again. It's so special. And likewise, every single response that anyone has to anything can have that. You can have that wonder about it. It's a choice. It's a choice you can make. It's not always easy to make that choice. If you're hungry, if you're tired, or other things, of course. But it's a choice we can make. We can dive. We can live in that place if we choose to. And that bliss is something that can appear as a result of listening with newborn ears every moment.
And Kelly?
Oh my God. Yeah. I think for me, it is such an honor and a privilege for me to be doing this work and to be sharing this experience. There are so many memories that I have of people finding themselves, finding new ways to look at themselves and to finding a real connection with themselves, and then to share that space with them is something that is so beautiful and unique, and it touches me every time, and I will always treasure it.
Wonderful. Well, I will treasure this night. I know our audience will as well. Lisa, Micah, Kelly, thank you so much for being here tonight. This was an incredible experience. Make sure you check out Playground of Empathy's website for more on their work and where else you can catch the shoe once we're able to get back on the road. And make sure you pre-order a copy of Lisa's new book, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, at Porter Square Books. You can do that tonight and get a signed copy. Any quick final remarks from the three of you for the evening?
I'm not known for my brevity, so if you get me talking again, you're probably not going to get me to shut up. I guess what I would say is it is very easy to be cynical and skeptical. I mean, scientists are skeptical. I'm skeptical by nature, really. I'm skeptical about everything, including my own work, and so it's fair to be skeptical. I mean, it's part of science. But it's very easy to be cynical and skeptical, and it's very easy to sort of poo-poo things and write them off as not rigorous or not real or not scientific. And I think that would be a mistake. That's really my message, actually. I don't know anybody who's more critically minded than me. I'm pretty,
you can ask any of my students, and certainly you can ask my daughter. I mean, I am very critically minded, sometimes, too much for my own good. But I think that there's a real power in what Playground of Empathy is doing. And there's a real science behind what they're trying to achieve. And it would be a mistake to dismiss it. It's actually a path that can lead to real discovery. In the philosophy of science, we distinguish between the context of discovery and the context of verification. Are you discovering something new? And then that gives you a set of hypotheses or ideas to test, and then you have the context of verification where you try to verify and test whether or not those ideas are right. And the shoe experience, the walk in my shoes experience, is an opportunity for discovery, for not only discovery about other people, but discovery about yourself, in a way that is really, really sympathetic and, I guess, copacetic with the science and what we know about the biology of experience. So I hope people got something from this event this evening, because it's important.
Great. Micah?
Yeah, I would love to express just a deep gratitude for everyone who's here, everyone who's listening and will be listening. And I'd like to wish you, in the month to come, which will have lots of unpredictable moments, a generosity of your curiosity. Keep your mind and your heart open to the experiences of yourself and of others. And I think as this evening has kind of described very well, that will be repaid. You will benefit deeply from doing so. And so that's my wish for everyone listening right now. And thank you.
Wonderful. And Kelly?
Thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you for the space, for this experience, for taking the space and giving yourself the space this evening. It's so meaningful to me, even though we are virtual with each other right now. It's something really, really special, and I hope that you have gratitude for yourself.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again to the three of you and everyone on the Playground of Empathy team and at the lab. Thank you once again to our friends at the Lowell Institute for making tonight possible. And thank you for all of you out there watching and spending your Wednesday evening with us. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you all so much. Good night.